Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 7 running back rankings for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 32 ranked running backs of the week, as well as explaining why I have the running backs ranked at each and every single spot inside of my top 32. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video to help boost it up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 7 running back rankings. A quick disclaimer: none of the players that played on Thursday Night Football will be included in today's video, so none of the running backs from the Denver Broncos or the Cleveland Browns. Why is that? Because this video is being recorded on Friday, and those players have already ended up playing. So week number 7 running back rankings, and this running back rankings list looks insane because there are 6 teams on bye this week, and a majority of these teams have very fantasy relevant running backs. The Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the LA Chargers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So at number 1 this week, we have Derrick Henry, running back of the Tennessee Titans, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And if we could put all of the players, all of the running backs, you could say revive Christian McCaffrey and make him healthy, make Saquon Barkley healthy, make Dalvin Cook play this week, and I'm still ranking Derrick Henry at number 1, because even with the fact that this guy isn't some type of pass-catching monster, it doesn't fucking matter at all, because this man is just running through every single defense. This dude is built like a truck and runs at the speed of Tyreek Hill. It is absolutely insane. Game in and game out, this dude is just bulldozing defenses. And this week, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs defense that is not very good at all, it would not surprise me at all if Derrick Henry ran for over 150 yards in this game. If he ran for over 200 yards in this game, because of how good Derrick Henry has looked, this team continues to want to just pound the rock game in and game out. AJ Brown still has some sickness that he had from that food poisoning, so maybe they continue to try to just pound the rock with aggression, and I expect Derrick Henry to have a huge showing up against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. At number 2, we have Alvin Kamara, running back of the New Orleans Saints, going up against the Seattle Seahawks this week in Seattle. This is a very soft matchup for Alvin Kamara and the New Orleans Saints, going up against a not-so-hot Seattle Seahawks defense up against the pass, as well as up against the run. Now, Alvin Kamara has been a huge disappointment in fantasy football this season. Now, has he been a bust? No, because he is still getting the ball a lot. The issue with it is that everyone expected going into this season that, just like every other year, Alvin Kamara was going to be this huge target hog inside the New Orleans Saints offense. And it made even more sense because Michael Thomas was out for the beginning of the season. Will he return this week? Probably not, but you get the sentiment. Alvin Kamara was going to be the main wide receiver on the team, even though he's the running back, because Michael Thomas was missing some time, and everyone was getting higher and higher up on Alvin Kamara, and it made so much sense because when Michael Thomas was out in prior years, Alvin Kamara turned into that main wide receiver. Alvin Kamara was seeing so many receptions in those games with Drew Brees, even when Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback, so you have to kind of just assume that he's going to play good with Jameis Winston, and he's not even necessarily playing bad. It's just that Alvin Kamara is not seeing that huge target share that we are accustomed to seeing with Alvin Kamara, so he should be good here up against the Seattle Seahawks, but the kind of dimming down of his receiving total game in and game out does obviously hurt him. At number 3, we have Darrell Henderson, running back of the LA Rams, going up against the Detroit Lions. We saw Darrell Henderson absolutely shellac the New York Football Giants defense last week through the air, on the ground. It did not matter at all. This week we have a Matthew Stafford revenge game up against the Lions, as well as a Jared Goff revenge game up against the LA Rams. I think the Rams destroy the Detroit Lions. I think they run the ball a lot later on into the game, so Darrell Henderson should be in for a humongous spot this week, just like he was last week up against the Giants. At number 4, we have Cordero Patterson, running back of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Now, if someone sent me a picture of, or maybe the video clip of myself right now, 7 weeks ago, where I have Cordero Patterson ranked as my running back number 4, I would think that it was fake. I would think that I was being fucking crazy, because that makes no sense at all. How could a running back who hasn't been very good at all in his NFL career, like 10 years deep now at this point, finally have this breakout season 10 years in. How is that possible? I'm not sure, but the Atlanta Falcons utilized this man so heavily in the offense, and they're coming out of the bye, and they weren't even using Cordero Patterson enough, in my opinion. With how good Cordero Patterson has been looking, he wasn't out there enough. So maybe coming out of the bye, they realized, hey, maybe we need to give the ball even more to Cordero Patterson, even further upping his value. Right now, I believe he is the running back number 10 in half PPR, and a lot of running backs haven't had their bye weeks yet. So even with the bye week, he is still a top 10 running back in half PPR. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he outscored Derrick Henry. Now, it's going to be very hard because, again, Derrick Henry is just going to run all over the Chiefs. Chiefs defense stands virtually no chance at stopping Derrick Henry, but the same thing could be said about the Dolphins defense because the Dolphins defense has been hot garbage this season. I expect Cordero Patterson to be in for a big spot this week. At number 5, we have JT, Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts, going up against the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran. Jonathan Taylor's season started off slow, and it continued to keep on going slow. And then eventually, over the last couple of games, he has really picked up steam, and it seems as though they are really committing to Jonathan Taylor as the workhorse back of the team, because last year, we were still seeing very high involvement of Nyheim Hines. Even though Jonathan Taylor is a jack of all trades, he could do the receiving down work. He could do the rushing down work. He's a 3-down running back. They weren't necessarily using him like that. They were kind of sifting in Mr. Nyheim Hines. They were using Marlon Mack a little bit. Obviously, last year, Marlon Mack ended up getting hurt. I'm more talking about at the beginning of this year. But I think they finally realized that, hey, it's Jonathan Taylor's season. We need to give this guy the ball more, and it is working very effectively. Just hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor going up against the 49ers. I believe it will work. The Indianapolis Colts offense is on the up and up. They keep looking better every single week, and I expect them to look pretty solid this week up against the 49ers. Maybe Carson Wentz doesn't have all that great of a game, but I think Jonathan Taylor should be able to get it done on the ground as well as in the air. Jonathan Taylor should be in for a solid matchup here, running back number 5. At number 6, we have Ron Jones, running back of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Washington football team. Last week, the running back that is right below Aaron Jones, number 7 running back, Darrell Williams, absolutely gashed the Washington football team defense. So imagine what's going to happen when we have a true, top 5 NFL running back in Aaron Jones going up against that Washington football team defense. Now, Aaron Jones hasn't been this necessarily amazing running back game in and game out. He has his spots, he has some down games, but at the end of the day, you want to heavily rely on him this week up against the Washington football team. I believe this is a smash matchup where Aaron Jones should have one of his better games of the season. At number 7, we have Darrell Williams, running back of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Funny thing, very funny, not so funny if you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Last week, Darrell Williams outscored in half PPR every single game that Clyde Edwards-Helaire has ever had in his career. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire's best game is worse than Darrell Williams' only game as the starter of the Chiefs this year, which is just crazy. Darrell Williams looks really good. It seems as though the Kansas City Chiefs offense is able to rely on him heavily. It seems as though he is the clear number 1 back on the team going up against the Tennessee Titans. I understand technically the Buffalo Bills didn't run all over the Kansas City Chiefs, didn't run all over, wink, wink, because Josh Allen ran all over them. It just wasn't Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. So I do expect a solid game out of Darrell Williams because I just don't expect Patrick Mahomes to go out there like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and just start fucking stiff-arming dudes, trying to hurdle guys, juking them out. That's just not what Patrick Mahomes is going to do, so I expect Darrell Williams to be in for a pretty solid spot. And number 8, we have Uncle Lenny, Leonard Fournette, running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going up against the Chicago Bears. And every week, I have to pinch myself telling you guys to start Leonard Fournette because I still know there's still that Bruce Arians, the old Bruce Arians in my mind, where Bruce Arians will tell you on the podium after the game, holy shit, Ronald Jones, you just had the greatest game of your life. You're getting the ball next week. And then next week, maybe the next game is just a couple days later on Thursday. And then out of nowhere, it's Leonard Fournette season. And then after the game, he says, oh, Uncle Lenny, you had a great game. Great job, buddy. It's Leonard Fournette season. And then Ronald Jones is rushing the ball aggressively the next game as the main guy. But this year, they have really pot committed to Uncle Lenny. It's been Uncle Lenny season game in and game out, and I'm going to continue to believe that this week up against the Chicago Bears in what may be a smackdown by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. At number 9, we have DeAndre Swift, running back of the Detroit Lions, going up against the LA Rams in LA. On paper, this is an awful matchup. DeAndre Swift is probably going to have virtually zero success running the ball. Luckily, they dump the ball off to DeAndre Swift a zillion times a game, so it doesn't even matter if he's able to get it done on the ground. A lot of my kind of argument against DeAndre Swift this whole offseason was that they were going to use Jamal Williams more than we would have liked, and in week number 1, that was true. They were using Jamal Williams a lot. They actually had success in that game. Recently, they pivoted off of Jamal Williams. They haven't been playing all that great. Is that why? Probably not. It's just because the team as a whole fucking sucks. But at the end of the day, DeAndre Swift has been he has escaped the wrath of Jamal Williams. That was potential. And it also just doesn't matter that they're down by 1 million, which was a concern of mine, because they're just dumping the ball off to DeAndre Swift so much. So I expect Swift to have another solid game, even if it doesn't make any sense. But before we get on into my number 10 ranked running back on the week, I would like to ask, if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button as well. It would help me out a ton. So at number 10, we got Joe Mixon, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Now we're at running back number 10, and it really feels like we're already getting down into the deep end because of how many teams are on bye and because of how many running backs are injured. So at number 10, we got Joe Mixon of the Bengals going up against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't love it, but when you're comparing him to the other running backs on the slate, I still feel fine starting Joe Mixon. I think that they should be able to keep this game close up against the Baltimore Ravens, so I believe Joe Mixon could be in for a pretty solid showing this week. Now, the biggest issue is that I still think Samaje Perine as well as Chris Evans have a role inside of this offense. It's not going to completely subdue all of Joe Mixon's value. It is just something to talk about because there is a pretty solid chance, I think, in the next couple of weeks that we see Chris Evans just vulture a touchdown. Same thing goes with Samaje Perine, but up against the Ravens with how solid the Bengals offense has looked, I think that this could be a closer game, which will lead to a decent amount of running by the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Now, onto running backs 11 through 20. At number 11, we have Chuba Hubbard, running back of the Carolina Panthers, going up against the New York Football Giants in the Meadowlands. In this one, I love Chuba Hubbard. The issue is that I like Chuba Hubbard a lot. I just don't understand what the fuck has happened to the Carolina Panthers offense. They came out the gate on fire. And then even without Christian McCaffrey, they looked pretty solid. But then as of recently, they really started to simmer down. Now, Chuba Hubbard has still been solid in these games. The only worry and why he's not ranked inside the top 10 is because the Carolina Panthers offense just hasn't really been putting the pedal to the metal. Sam Darnold just hasn't looked all that great as of recently. But how could everything correct for the Panthers? It's pretty easy. You get a fucking alley-oop matchup here up against the Giants. It should be easy to sprinkle a huge matchup up against the Giants, so I like Chuba Hubbard, top 12 running back on the week. At number 12, we have Josh Jacobs, running back of the Las Vegas Raiders, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. With John Gruden, without John Gruden, the Raiders offense seems to have committed to Josh Jacobs getting the ball. Now, Josh Jacobs is not a running back that's going to be getting targeted 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times every single game like some running backs in the NFL, but he is a guy that is very reliable on the ground, and in what could be a matchup that is very close in my opinion, that should lead to a commitment to running the ball with Josh Jacobs. So I think Josh Jacobs could be in for a pretty solid showing this week at number 12. At number 13, we have Mike Davis, running back of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Miami Dolphins. Now, when it comes to Mike Davis, the thing is just that the Dolphins' defense is so shit. While I think Cordero Patterson is going to have a huge game, it is entirely possible that Mike Davis does as well, because the Dolphins' defense is awful up against the run. Now, they looked bad up against the pass last week, too, up against the Jaguars, but that's because Xavier Howard wasn't there. That's because Byron Jones wasn't there. I assume both of them play, so they won't look as bad up against the pass, but even when those guys are in, they're not there to stop the fucking run. The holes are open, wide open. It is just wide open. It's like when Moses parts the Red Sea. The hole just opens wide, and Mike Davis is going to run all over them. That's why I think Cordero Patterson has a big game. Same reason why I think Mike Davis has a big game. The Dolphins defense is fucking atrocious up against the run. At number 14, we have Elijah Mitchell of the 49ers going up against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Elijah Mitchell has a very high ranking because his upside is near the fucking moon. It really is, because the 49ers are a team that like to run the ball, and they run the ball very effectively. If Elijah Mitchell is the main running back, if he rushes for like 70 yards, finds his way into the end zone, his upside is very high. His downside is the exact same thing. His His floor is very low, but the ceiling is at the fucking moon, because if he is able to get the ball a decent amount, if he is the clear workhorse back for the 49ers, if Kyle Juszczyk doesn't hop into the game and vulture a touchdown, if Trey Sermon doesn't vulture a touchdown, then the upside there for Elijah Mitchell to be a top-end running back is immense. But there's also a chance that, like I said, Kyle Juszczyk vultures the touchdown, or Trey Sermon gets the touchdown, or maybe Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he's the starting quarterback most likely this week, that Trey Lance gets in the game and runs in the touchdown. So there's a lot of kind of outside members of the team that could be stealing the points away from Elijah Mitchell. I still think he could have a big game, but you have to understand the risks, and that's why he's ranked at running back number 14. At number 15, we have Damian Harris, running back of the New England Patriots, going up against the New York Jumbo Jets. It appears as we get closer and closer to Sunday that there is really no chance that the Patriots sit down Damian Harris, even though he's gotten banged up in both of the last two games. And if the Patriots are going to commit to Damian Harris, even with him being slightly banged up, you have to commit to him going up against the Jets, because this is a wet dream matchup for a running back going up against a defense like the Jets. I think Damian Harris has a huge spot, because I don't think that Bill Belichick wants to kind of put the pedal to the metal. I expect him to want to just kind of run the ball, coast out the game up against the Jumbo Jets, heavily utilizing Damian Harris. At number 16, we have Devontae Booker, running back of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Carolina Panthers. The Giants last week, their offense was atrocious. Their defense got bent over a table by Matthew Stafford and just raw dogged. Do I expect that to happen this week up against the Panthers? No. So I think that gives Devontae Booker a lot better of a chance to play better, when they're not just turning the ball over every 5 seconds with Daniel Jones. Devontae Booker was a huge swing and a miss last week, but I think if they're able to stay closer in this game, we should be fine with Devontae Booker. At number 17, we have James Conner, and at 18, we have Chase Edmonds, both running backs of the Arizona Cardinals, going up against the Houston Texans. And where we are sitting right now, I believe James Conner is the better start, because it seems like Chase Edmonds has been getting kind of phased out of the offense a little bit, and James Conner has been being more heavily inserted into this offense. Going up against the Houston Texans, though, you can make the argument that they both form an Eiffel Tower over the Houston Texans and plow them all game long, because the Texans' defense is bad. They should be up by a zillion in this game, and they want to run the ball a lot, utilizing James Conner. I expect James Conner to have a very solid showing this week. I expect him to score. Running back number 17. 18 again, Chase Edmonds. He's still involved, but how involved? That's the big question mark. But with so many injuries, with so many players on bye, you have to elevate these guys up. Running back number 18. At number 19, we have Antonio Gibson. And at 20, we have J.D. McKissic, going both up against the Green Bay Packers. The question here is, does Antonio Gibson get the nod to go or not? Because even if Antonio Gibson is banged up, just like we saw last week, where he's in the game, he's out of the game, he's in the game, he's out of the game, he was still able to perform, because the Washington football team offense heavily utilizes the running back position in the receiving game, and they like to run the ball. Even though they were playing not so hot up against the Chiefs, they were still very much running the football. So if Antonio Gibson is healthy, I feel as though you have to start him. But if he's not healthy, then J.D. McKissic would kind of skyrocket his way up to being a top 15, maybe even a top 14-ish running back, because I think J.D. McKissic will have all the upside, because he will be the only guy carrying the ball, whereas Antonio Gibson, when he is fully healthy, J.D. McKissic is still looming in the background. So I think both of them could have solid games, though, if they're both good to go. Next up, we got running backs 21 through 30. At number 21, we got Alex Collins, running back of the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the New Orleans Saints. I am not really seeing anything right now that will point me away from thinking Alex Collins is going to be sitting down in this game without Chris Carson. Alex Collins is the main back. Now, going up against the Saints is worrisome. The Seattle Seahawks offense is worrisome without Russell Wilson. This game looks bad news bears for the Seattle Seahawks. But Alex Collins, even though it was a bad news bears, a bad game script up against the Steelers, Alex Collins still performed. So that's why we got him ranked inside the top 24. Number 22, we have Juice Khalil Herbert, running back of the Chicago Bears, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense. My assumption is that Damian Williams does not end up suiting up. If Damian Williams was to play, now we're not even going to know until tomorrow on Saturday, because they can't COVID test him again until Saturday, because he's not vaccinated, I think. Again, I don't necessarily understand how the rules work in the NFL. I just read something. He's not vaccinated. He cannot be tested until Saturday. So that's how things are working. If he's good to go on Saturday, Then you knock Khalil Herbert. You say you dribble him around. You throw him out of here. You say skedaddle, pal. You get out of here. You move Damian Harris up to here. You knock Khalil Herbert down. This is a bad matchup. This is a bad matchup. It really is. But there's not that many great running back matchups behind this. There's not that many great opportunities behind this. So Khalil Herbert is running back number 22. At number 23, we have Michael Carter, running back of the Jumbo Jets, going up against the New England Patriots. It appears that Michael Carter is the clear lead back in New York for the Jets, which is great for fantasy football. The bad part is that he's the lead running back for the Jets. That's the bad part, because the Jets aren't that good. Zach Wilson, I don't think he's a fucking bust or something. I'm not going to kick him to the curb, right, and tell you guys that he's a bust or something, because that's unfair, at least in my opinion, to try to just analyze 5 games of a guy's NFL career and say that he fucking sucks or something. I'm not going to say that, but he doesn't look great. At least right now, Michael Carter is not in the best situation because Zach Wilson doesn't look great, and because I expect the Patriots to kind of maul the Jets. So Michael Carter still has value, but it's not very high. Number 24, we have Miles Sanders, running back of the Eagles, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. Miles Sanders. Now, this is a guy that has all the talent to be great, but is in the wrong situation because Nick Sirianni refuses to run the football. Nick Sirianni definitely refused to run the ball in the first half. Nick Sirianni kind of likes to implement Kenneth Gainwell, but even when he doesn't implement Kenneth Gainwell, they still don't run the ball enough. It's just a shitty situation. I think if they were to give the football to Miles Sanders in this game up against the Raiders, he could easily be a top 10 running back because of, the other running backs on this slate aren't the greatest, right? Because of all the bye weeks, all the injuries. So he could easily be a top 10 running back. But will he be given that opportunity? Probably not. And I'm going to continue to really harp on, really hammer in on the fact that you need to be sitting Miles Sanders, even though I believe he's actually one of the, not a premier running back in the NFL, but he's a pretty solid starting NFL back. And moving to number 25, we have Devonta Freeman, running back of the Baltimore Ravens, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Now, Devonta Freeman is up this high in the rankings in this situation because my belief is that Latavius Murray does not end up playing. That's what it seems like. If Latavius Murray plays, then you throw him up to number 25. This is a situation in Baltimore with the running backs where you're going to be pulling your hair out game in and game out because it is very unlikely that you can predict which guy is the main guy, because if Latavius Murray doesn't play, then I would believe it's going to be Devonta Freeman, but because I think it's Devonta Freeman, it'll probably Le'Veon Bell, right, or Tyson Williams. So it's a very confusing situation here, game in and game out, but the upside of the number 1 running back in the Baltimore Ravens system up against the Cincinnati Bengals, where they run the ball so much, is just so high that they have to be ranked inside the top 32. At number 26, we have Myles Gaskin, running back of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Last week was a huge swing and a miss for my take on Myles Gaskin. I thought that, hey, the Miami Dolphins, they just heavily utilize Myles Gaskin up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You can run the ball up against the Jaguars. We're going to see a heavy dosage of Myles Gaskin. When you take the sample size of Myles Gaskin's season, when you're looking at all the stats under a microscope, when you're using your fucking microscope to inspect the games, you can see that, hey, Myles Gaskin's best game of the season, besides the one up against the Bucs, was with Tua Tagovailoa. Tua's the starting quarterback. Bada bing, bada boom. This is great. I'm like, okay, we're good with Myles Gaskin, and then boom, he fucking sucks because the Dolphins don't understand how to give the ball to Myles Gaskin. The reason why he's at number 26 is because maybe they figure it out. Maybe they pull their head out of their ass and they give the rock to Myles Gaskin, because up against the Falcons, this should be a smash matchup. This should be a wet dream matchup. Last week, too, up against the Jaguars, but it's not, because they don't know how to use him correctly. At number 27, we got A.J. Dillon, running back of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Washington football team. We've basically entered the part of the rankings where it is just a complete and utter shit show. A.J. Dillon, your hope for A.J. Dillon is that the Green Bay Packers pound out the Washington football team. They beat the Washington football team to a pulp, and then A.J. Dillon just runs the ball 7,000 times at the end of the game, and they win. And they win with A.J. Dillon scoring some bullshit touchdown at the end of the game in garbage time. That's your hope there with A.J. Dillon. At number 28, we got Nyheim Hines, running back of the Indianapolis Colts, going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Now, they have kind of phased him out of the system. They've kind of phased him out in favor of Jonathan Taylor, and it makes sense. I agree with that move. But there's still a chance that they're back on their bullshit. They go back to the old ways, and they still utilize Nyheim Hines, because there is a chance that he does get utilization. I don't know why the fuck I can't speak right now, but there is a chance that they do utilize him in this game, and his upside when utilized is a guy that could get like 7, 8, 9 targets in a game. At number 29, we got Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, running back of the Detroit Lions, going up against the LA Rams in LA. We talked about this a little bit earlier. They seem to have pivoted off of Williams, pivoted heavily onto DeAndre Swift. And it works for Swift, doesn't work so well for the team because the team hasn't been playing as well without heavily utilizing Jamal Williams. Williams is still a talented running back. He could still vulture DeAndre Swift in this game. But again, you're really just praying for the touchdown. At number 30, we got Mr. Mark Ingram, running back of the Texans, going up against the Cardinals in Arizona. My expectation right now is that Mark Ingram is the lead back. How much value does that have in Houston? Not much, but he is still the lead back on a team, so he can crack the top 30. Now to running backs 31 through 32. At number 31, we have Kenyon Drake, running back of the Raiders, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. While I talked about how Josh Jacobs is still the main running back in Las Vegas, they still do use Kenyon Drake because they don't heavily utilize Josh Jacobs in the receiving game. So if this game is a very high-scoring game by the Eagles, and the Raiders are crawling their way on into this game, then Kenyon Drake will be utilized. That's kind of the picture you have to paint Bob Ross style into wanting to start Kenyon Drake. And at 32, closing in my top 32 ranked running backs of week number 7, we have Trey Sermon, running back of the 49ers, going up against the Colts. Again, I think Elijah Mitchell is the guy, but there's also a very good chance that he's not. Well, not a very good chance. I think there's a very good chance that he is the guy, but there's also that chance that, Shanahan will Shanahan, and Trey Sermon's now utilized, or Kyle Juszczyk is utilized, or Trey Sermon runs in there, or Trey Lance runs in there, scores a touchdown. So, Trey Sermon still has some upside. He does, because he's a very talented running back. But how much utilization will he see week in and week out is always up in the air, and it always will be in the 49ers system because they don't really ever commit. They don't really commit to just one running back. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a like on today's video as well. I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy.